So as it's Pride Month, I just wanted to put this out there. I've been very trapped in my body for so long, and you know, I identify with the Korean culture. I've lived in Korea, I speak the language, I have the Korean look now, I look completely Korean. If you didn't know who I was, you would just think I was a Korean person. Not a man or a woman, just a person. And no one's done this before, but I just want to take the brave step to, you know, do this, because I'm sure there's many other young people out there that do identify as Korean or maybe as Japanese, and they don't have the strength or courage, or they don't know the words how to express this. And it's a very, very tough thing.
Oli London joins us tonight. Oli London, thanks so much for coming on. So why did you decide to become a Korean woman? Who told you that was possible?
You know, is it any wonder people like me and young people want to change their gender when we have the normalization of this in our schools in this country?
So hello everyone, this time from the Kingdom of Thailand. That really doesn't roll off the tongue as nicely as the Kingdom of Cambodia or even the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. I've moved country again, but don't worry, the content is still coming your way. And today we're talking about someone I probably should have made a video on like years ago, considering I've been doing YouTube for nearly 5 years at this point. But I'm doing it today because I've seen this person's like evolution into some sort of far-right conservative political grifter in the United States when they've never shown any interest in United States politics. And Oli London is now tweeting stuff like, I don't know, put Hunter Biden in prison, because I'm pretty sure Oli London has always cared about Hunter Biden. So if you guys aren't familiar with Oli London, don't worry, you're gonna become familiar with them throughout this video. And before we go any further, I guess I should clarify, Oli London now identifies as a man, and this is part of their new evolution that they're saying that they have detransitioned from being a woman. The problem also being they actually identified as a Korean woman, because that is why Oli London is so infamous. Not only have they identified as non-binary and a woman in the past, they've also identified as Korean despite being a white English person. And although this story just seems like so ridiculous and so racist on the surface, there is multiple problems with this, and especially what Oli London is choosing to pursue as a career path now. Because back in the day, their obsession with like K-pop and stuff like that led them to, I don't know, identify as Korean. And I guess it's pretty on brand now that Oli London is going around far-right news networks in America and conservative TV stations and Christian like publications, and basically saying that the reason they did this is because they were force-fed woke ideology, which made them decide they wanted to be a trans Korean woman instead of being a man. So all of that coming up for you today in the video. I'm sorry about my setup if it doesn't look that good. I've hastily thrown this one together because I've been really busy since I got here editing last night's video. So I'm going to try and make a better set for the next one. But let me know if it looks okay. Let me know if it sounds okay. It's only for the next 2 weeks while I pump out the content before the Christmas holidays. Also follow me on social media at the Kavernacle, on Twitter, on Instagram. Check out my Patreon if you care about my travel videos. I'm hopefully going to post the one about Cambodia soon. Also, if you want to get my Nintendo Switch friend code and access to the private patrons Discord server, please consider becoming a patron. Also, check out the subreddit and check out my second channel down in the description. Oli London has been in the headlines for about the last like 3 or so years, but through various phases they've become more notorious, making videos about identifying as Korean. I just want to read a bit of a Vice article about this before reacting to a video they released like a year ago talking about identifying as a non-binary Korean person. So back in June, we spoke with a white influencer who got 18 surgeries to become Korean, Oli London, a white British influencer who had earlier married a cardboard cutout of Jimin, a vocalist from the K-pop group BTS. I'm not even going to talk about that, by the way. There's loads of ridiculous stuff when it comes to this guy. Has now come out as transracial non-binary Korean. London told Vice that they spent around £175,000 on plastic surgery to look like their favourite idol Jimin. London came out to the world about their transition through a tweet on June 19th. This is my new official flag for being a non-binary person who identifies as Korean, the tweet read. Attached to the tweet was a photo of the Korean flag with rainbow stripes instead of regular colours. On June 26th, they released yet another video titled Being Korean, where they revealed they no longer identify as British. My pronouns are they, them, Korean, and Jimin. I look Korean and Korea is my home country, they said in the video. However, the comment section of the video remained largely critical of them. I'm going to show you a bit of this video and talk about it in a sec. So the 31-year-old influencer and musician told Vice over email that they first connected with Korean culture in 2013. I was in Korea for a year and was teaching English. That 1 year changed my life forever. Oli London tweeting stuff like being transsexual is the same as being transracial because you're born in the wrong body. Ben Shapiro saying only bigots disagree. And London told Vice, woke people and trolls will always attack people they deem different by society standards. Because I am unique and I don't fit into the norm, these people target and bully me in an attempt to try to degrade me and make me feel bad about who I am. People that call me racist are the actual racists. Absolutely amazing. Now, before we go into that video, there was actually an article by a website called Isu and had like a profile on Oli London, and it says more than meets the eye. So I just want to read a tiny bit from this because it's from 2019, before people became like massively aware of him, and he just talks about the background a bit more. Are there any social or moral issues surrounding changing your identity to look like someone from another race? I'm not trying to change my race. It's not about changing my race because I know I'm British, but I fully identify with Korean culture. I mean, I wish I was born in Korea in a way because just the culture for me, I identify with it so much more than British culture. I feel almost outcast in this country. Some people find it controversial. I'm not trying to change my ethnicity at all, but I'm obsessed with the K-pop look and Jimin, the way he looks, so that's more what I'm going for. So obviously there's absolutely nothing wrong with feeling like alien in the culture you're born into. Like, what even is British culture? Like drinking and fighting at football games and eating like terrible food and like voting for the Tory party and stuff like that. I admit there isn't too much redeeming about British culture, and for someone who's like from an Irish background but actually isn't born in Ireland, I like understand feeling like closely connected to another culture that you weren't raised in. At the same time, I'm living in Thailand right now. I've recently lived in Cambodia and Vietnam. If I like that so much, I can't then suddenly start identifying as Vietnamese, even if I get bizarre surgery to try and look Vietnamese, whatever that means, and try and present myself as a Vietnamese person because I self-identify as a Vietnamese person, and that's what Oli London has been doing with Korea. So here's a video they put out over a year ago called Being Korean, where they came out as Korean and non-binary, and I just want to talk about this for a bit.
And I've been very confused about how I identify. I've been very, very confused. And, you know, I've seen a lot of other people online that have come out and been very brave about it and shared their story about how they identify, their gender, their pronouns, etc. So, you know, I've taken courage from these incredibly brave people, and it is Pride Month at the moment. So, you know, I thought this was the best time to do it, you know, and add a voice, add strength to the LGBTQ+I community. So I am going to come out today and say that I've been transitioning. I've been very unhappy with who I am deep down for the last 8 years, and I've had like 18 plastic surgeries now. And I'm feeling really good. For the first time in my life, I feel beautiful. You know, I'm looking in the mirror and I love the way I look and feel happy. And I hope people can respect my decision. It's a very tough decision to come out this way. But I am coming out as non-binary. I don't feel I identify as male or female. I just feel like I'm just in the middle. And my pronouns are they, them, Korean, Jimin. Because I know a lot of people don't understand me, but I do identify as Korean. And I do look Korean now. I do feel Korean. I don't identify as British, so please don't refer to me, any media or anyone online, as British, because I identify as Korean. That's just my culture. That's my home country. That's exactly how I look now. And I also identify as Jimin. That's my Korean name. But undergone my racial, can't think of the word, transitional surgery. You know, I've transitioned to a non-binary person. They, them, Korean, Jimin, and I finally have the Korean look, so I'm actually really happy.
So I totally sympathize with someone going through struggles with their gender. And if you actually remove them constantly referring to themselves as Korean from this video, it doesn't sound bad at all. And often when people transition, they get surgery as well. There's also nothing wrong with that. But then the problem being is most of their surgery is being done to make them look Korean, which is extremely problematic in itself and racist. So at one end, I'm watching this and I'm sympathizing with someone who is struggling with their gender identity and saying that they're not a man anymore, they are non-binary, but then they're saying you can call them they, them, or Korean Jamin, and it just seems to make like a whole mockery of it to a lot of people because you're lumping in something that is insanely racist and not even a thing. Like, you can't be transracial in with something legitimate. And what does that do? It gives like conservatives ammo to say, well, look at all of this stuff. It's all made up. We always knew it. Now they're identifying as different nationalities and ethnic groups. It doesn't stop with them identifying as non-binary or identifying as a woman, as Oli London would go on to. Now they're identifying as Koreans as well. And it's like that joke we made about the attack helicopter. Is that next? Will they start identifying as animals? Because that's another moral panic right now about furries in schools and stuff. And also after this, they started to identify as a woman, but the caveat being they identified as a Korean woman, right? So this is the really bizarre angle to this Oli London stuff. When they start talking about their gender, they always throw in the Korean part in there. Again, extremely, extremely bizarre, racist in my opinion. But Oli London was identifying as a woman for about 6 months, I believe. But then recently has now said they identify as a man. Absolutely no problem with that, of course. But then the problem being, they're now going on conservative TV shows and saying that the reason they did all this stuff was because of woke gender ideology, and this has to be one of the biggest grifts. Of course, there's nothing wrong of going through an evolution in terms of your gender. Of course, there's nothing wrong with detransitioning as well. But this is a thing that the right likes to use, right? The numbers of people who detransition is very, very low. So what conservatives like to do is pick up on the more rare cases and make that seem like that is the majority of people. And often you do get examples like Oli London, who will go on these shows and tell them that they want to hear that they were just confused, they were bullied as a kid, and then the woke liberals, they indoctrinated them with gender ideology, and then they became like transgender, or even in this case, they became a Korean non-binary person and a Korean woman. And honestly, despite all the controversy with the Korean stuff, I'd almost feel sorry for this person if it kind of ended with them detransitioning and just being like, you know, I've gone through a lot of things and I want to be a man and stuff. But no, they've got to do this and then start going on the worst conservative shows in America. So let's start this off by a video they released in October explaining my detransition. So let's have a look at this.
So basically, as you guys know, I transitioned. I became a Korean woman. I had a lot of surgery to be more feminine. I started to wear women's clothing. I got Korean hair extensions. And started wearing makeup and just really living as a Korean woman for the last 6 months. But I just didn't feel right the whole time. And, you know, I felt really good at the start. You know, so many people gave me compliments. So many people saying, wow, you actually look better as a woman. So I was thinking, okay, I do look better. I look more Korean this way. So I was thinking, I'm happy. But, you know, I realized it's only temporary happiness. So as you guys know, I'm always confused about how I identify. Some days I wake up as Jimin, some days I wake up as Rose from Blackpink. But I've come to realize that actually I am a man and I want to stay as a man. So I'm going to revert to my original pronouns, which is he, him, and call Ian. So these are going to be my pronouns again. And I really do appreciate everyone for respecting my pronouns and calling me she, her during the last 6 months when I identified as a Korean woman. And I was born in the wrong body, but I was born in a British body when it should have been Korean. But I've come to realize I don't want to be a woman. I felt good for a time experimenting. I was gender fluid, but I'm no longer trans. So I'm actually in the process of detransitioning, and I am living as a Korean man again. So pronouns he, him, call Ian.
So again, there wouldn't necessarily be anything wrong with this video if they didn't keep saying that they identified as a Korean non-binary person or a Korean woman, right? That is the thing that is wrong with this. And they still identify as Korean. Like, this person seriously has some issues with this stuff, is so obsessed with K-pop, they are still saying they identify as Korean. And a lot of people are saying, like, this must be some sort of troll. Like, they are just committed to this troll. And I'm finding that very hard to believe, just because they were saying this stuff years ago, before even they became, like, pretty notorious online. They were saying they identified as a Korean person. So again, very bizarre, of course, like, extremely racist. But there's been a lot of videos talking about, like, the racism of this, and I don't really want to do that because I think I have something more relevant to talk about that hasn't been spoke about as much, and that is how now they are becoming an anti-trans political activist. This reminds me a lot of Milo Yiannopoulos, that apparently now they're also a Christian, and because they're a Christian, they're rejecting trans ideology. So here's an article they wrote for a Christian, like, news organization. So, Oli London, I've rejected my trans identity to follow Jesus. Now I want to be baptized. For many years, I was lost, confused, and constantly undergoing plastic surgery in an attempt to find happiness. I've had 32 operations to change the way I look, and 6 months ago, I decided to take my most drastic step yet and transition from male to female. I had come to the conclusion that my identity issues were gender-related. I underwent multiple facial feminization surgeries, changed my entire wardrobe, and had hair extensions fitted. After coming out as a trans woman, I enjoyed the affirmation of my fans. Many celebrated my new identity and commended me for being stunning and brave. One day, I was taking a walk to clear my mind. It was a rainy Sunday morning, and I saw people going into a nearby Catholic church. They were all so smartly dressed, smiling and chatting with one another as they filed into the medieval building. As someone who was raised English Catholic, I don't recall too many people being smartly dressed at church. I paused for a brief moment, and then as the last person filed through the open doors, I took a seat at the back. After the service ended, as people were leaving, I remember how friendly and welcoming everyone was. With their warm smiles and kind eyes, the priest approached me and introduced himself, and I thanked him for a wonderful service. We talked for a while about life and the teachings of Jesus, and he said I was welcome back anytime. He offered me a Bible to read at home. I went home and reflected deeply on this encounter. Everyone had been so welcoming and non-judgmental. It was a far cry from the usual places I spend my time, Twitter and TikTok, where I'm often bombarded with hate and judgment. Following on from this enlightening experience, I started regularly attending church several times a week and dropping into a nearby church to say a prayer and find my focus for the day. The moment I decided to become male again and detransition, I was cast out by the trans lobby and demonized and degraded. I became a target for insults and hate. I am blessed to have a big platform and large audience around the world, so my mission is to use the platform to help spread the word of God. I want to help others and promote kindness. I also want to save children from being pushed and changing genders. We are all God's creatures. We are all born with our own beauty, the way God intended us to be. We all need to learn to love ourselves and find self-acceptance. My next goal is to get baptized. I would like to use my baptism to encourage my followers and audience to find God. I have reached out to some of America's largest pastors, such as Kenneth Copeland, the literal devil, and Franklin Graham, to have them baptize me in America and televise this to help millions of others find God. So notice in this article, they don't mention being Korean once, and that is very telling. Now, Oli London does not really talk about being Korean, doesn't really talk about identifying as Korean. Even when they tell the story of their struggles with their gender, they don't mention the Korean part because they're trying to position themselves for the conservative grift. They're trying to say, like, my struggles and stuff were with my gender identity, but once I found God and I detransitioned into being a man, I realized it was this woke indoctrination, and the trans lobby cast me out, and the Catholic Church were really accepting. Even as someone who was raised in, like, tolerant liberal Catholicism, I do find it very hard to believe that the Catholic Church would be extremely welcoming. Maybe to your face they'd be polite, but they honestly would not accept you. But the bit at the end about Kenneth Copeland and the bit about being, like, stunning and brave, I'm probably thinking too much into this, but it's just hitting the levels of, like, trolling. Honestly, this article is bullshit, right? Like, this person hasn't found Jesus. They haven't become, like, some Catholic zealot who wants to be baptized by Kenneth Copeland. They're just trying to position themselves as someone who can go on TV, talk about their experience with gender, but then blame it all on apparent, like, woke indoctrination. And it's all our fault with our gender ideology for making Oli London identify as Korean. But don't worry, that article was actually fairly tame compared to what they've been saying. Just look at their Instagram, just to show you they are now just like this conservative grifter. If you go on the Instagram, they have stuff like this, pronouns. Alpha male. Is this Nick Adams we're talking about? And then posing outside 45, Donald Trump. Oli London 2024. I will be releasing my final album this January and will be going on hiatus from my music career to focus on a new direction, politics. I want to help make the world a better place, help speak out for the voiceless, help fight for equality, stand up for women and children, and protect freedom of speech. The world has so much division and we need unity. Children need to be protected from harmful ideologies and women need to be respected and not silenced. I will fight against woke and cancel culture. This person reminds me so much of Milo Yiannopoulos, but Milo Yiannopoulos was actually political to start with. Oli London becoming a political grifter, not in the UK where they're from, in the United States, is absolutely bizarre to me. Like, someone suddenly really caring about very in-depth American politics and also being like this token detransition person to go on TV and talk about how it's all the left's fault. So now let's look at their Twitter account before looking at their appearance on Tucker Carlson as well. So this is what I'm talking about. This is why it's so bizarre to watch this person go from being notorious for identifying as Korean to becoming some sort of American conservative political pundit when they probably know nothing about it. Like, who is writing these tweets? So Paul Whelan is still in prison in Russia. And obviously people are still trying to bash Biden. So justice for Paul Whelan. He's been abandoned by Biden in a Russian jail. Why does the Biden administration have no respect for service members? Oli London, why do you care about the United States military? When have you ever cared about this stuff? That's why it's just so funny. And then they're also tweeting about this even more. Free Paul Whelan, a US Marine jailed in Russia under false charges. He is not a celebrity. He is not a basketball player. But does that make him any less of a priority to free him? He served his country. Abandoning him is shameful. Welcome back to Twitter. Roger Stone? Did Oli London know who Roger Stone was before they became a Catholic conservative grifter? I'm sure Oli London pursued a political career because they cared so much about what happened to Roger Stone. So then stuff like this. For the woke warriors that keep attacking me online every day, respect my pronouns, alpha male, D-trans, Chris, Ian, and then fire Fauci. Like, this person is tweeting conservative things from like 2020. Like, do people even care about Fauci anymore, even in conservative circles? Of course, as this grifter, they're also talking about J.K. Rowling. J.K. Rowling faces hate and threats on a daily basis from trans activists. All she has ever done is defend women's rights and speak up for women being silenced. She deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. Santa Claus is a man. He has always been a man. He will never be gender neutral, and he will never change the pronouns from Santa Claus. Woke people want to cancel Santa for being transphobic. P.S. All the reindeer are male too, and they will never change their pronouns. Guys in the comments, people like this and Nick Adams, do you think they're laughing while writing this stuff? Like, this is so insane. Or is this stuff all just outsourced to people who make like really generic conservative tweets? So Joe Biden tweeting, "You hired me to get things done. I hope I'm making you proud. Oli London, China hired you to get things done for them. China first, America last with your quid pro Joe." Oli London, who deeply cares about, I don't know, US-Chinese relations. Biden is corrupt to the core. Investigate the DNC and Democrats for censoring the Hunter Biden laptop story on Twitter. Hold them accountable. They are anti-democracy and anti-America. Investigate Hunter Biden. Honestly, it's so bizarre to watch the conservative grifting media machine in action. Like, to become a conservative grifter who probably gets paid like some money, you just got to start tweeting the most generic stuff. Like, I meant to believe that Oli London suddenly, over the last month, deeply cares about American politics. So much so they're talking about firing Fauci and investigating Hunter Biden. I meant to believe that Oli London even knew who Hunter Biden was over a month ago. Seriously? I think out of all conservative grifters, this is the most ridiculous one. Only because there is literally like nothing in their history which indicates they would care about this stuff. And a lot of this stuff isn't even talking about anything to do with gender and stuff. It's just generic conservative politics. Don't worry, they are really gross. They're happy to play this like token detransition person to shit all over transgender people as a whole and help the conservative movement in America demonize and attack transgender people in the media, which actually results in plenty of Americans actually carrying out physical violence upon the LGBT community, and often motivated by the hysteria created around transgender people. Now, to finish this video off, here is Oli London going on Tucker Carlson. Now, this is an interesting clip. I don't know if I'll show you it all. Tucker Carlson barely speaks. He basically says like 2 sentences, and it seems like it's all set up for Oli London to just say something that was prepared and to just say something that plays into the wider conservative narrative. So let's have a look at this.
So why did you decide to become a Korean woman? Who told you that was possible?
So obviously I've had a difficult time with my gender identity struggles. I was never unhappy with how I looked. So I started changing. I started dressing as a Korean woman, and I realized that was a big mistake, and I just want to be a boy. But, you know, is it any wonder people like me and young people want to change their gender when we have the normalization of this in our schools in this country? Children are taught from a young age, from the age of 5 in some cases, that it's okay to change their gender. It's okay to, you know, wear a skirt. It's okay for a boy to use a gender-neutral toilet when it puts girls at risk. This is the new norm, and schools are teaching about toxic masculinity. They're eroding the alpha male. The alpha straight male has been eroded. You know, Tucker, what happened years ago when kids used to go to school, they used to idolize Superman and astronauts. Now kids are being pushed this radical ideology. They're taught to idolize weak men like Harry Styles, weak politicians like Beto O'Rourke. Why is this happening, you know? And is it any wonder people like me fall victim to this, that I had all this surgery, I tried to change because, you know, I kind of fell victim to this mentality. I'm an adult, but, you know, these kids can't make these decisions on their own. They're being pushed this radical agenda, and I'm grateful that I've come out the other side. I'm grateful I found God. But, you know, I want to speak up for these kids that are confused with their gender. A lot of kids have gender dysphoria, and, you know, that wasn't a thing 20 years ago, Tucker. This is what's being taught in the school system. I feel like, you know, if I was born 40 years ago, I wouldn't have done this. It's what the woke culture is pushing these days, what we see on TikTok. It's the new normal.
So pretty much how you know this is like really scripted is that it's framed as an interview, like a live interview, and then Tucker Carlson asks a question, Oli London kind of answers it, and then goes on a massive tangent that seems like it'd be an answer to a completely different question. But of course, as you see, everything in there, extremely generic, heard it a million times from the conservatives, talking about stuff like back in the past, they would have never gone down this path. It was all about them, you know, like struggling with their looks, and then suddenly, you know, because of the stuff being pushed in schools, but he's talking about American schools. Again, he's a British guy. He didn't go to American schools. How would he know what is being pushed in schools beyond just seeing this conservative fear-mongering? And saying, of course, they would never be fully happy until they detransitioned and basically accepted they were a man. I just find this like really gross, because, you know, at the end of the day, they are just totally doing this for money. Of course, there is like a limited market in the conservative movement in America for tokenized people, in terms of like, if you are a gay man like Dave Rubin, to start shitting all over the gay community, if you're a transgender person, and of course now you have people like this who are detransition people who now say that the only reason they went through all this surgery, the only reason they struggled with their gender so much is because what we're teaching in schools, because of the left saying that you can wear a dress if you want to, because of the left like demonizing alpha males, as he says in this clip. Totally bizarre and untrue. This person is extremely gross for the Korean stuff anyway, and of course gets even worse because of this Christian conservative grifting. But honestly, we've seen this a lot. This totally reminds me of like Milo Yiannopoulos being like an ex-gay Catholic, which he did last year before he became like Kanye West's campaign manager, but he's not anymore. But there are plenty of conservatives just like Oli London. The main point for me in this video is just, this is like the last person you'd expect to become some sort of conservative talking head on Tucker Carlson, mainly because they've shown like no interest in politics, let alone American conservative politics. Anyway, that is it for the video. My first video done in Thailand. Let me know how it sounded, looked, all that good stuff. And if you made it this far, thank you for watching.